I want to talk a little bit about the Good Samaritan today. I have so many thoughts, and I just like to share and get them out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too. So, I was listening to the Talk of Him podcast. It's put out by Siegel Book, and it's got Gaina Lynn and John as the hosts. And John was talking about the Good Samaritan, and he was talking about a different perspective than I'd ever really thought of, maybe, or maybe hadn't really dived really deep into. Dived, that's not a word. Anyway, so I hadn't really dove deep into this. And he was saying that oftentimes we think of the Good Samaritan as us, right? And we're maybe because we're a little bit self-centered, or maybe just because that's the way we've always kind of heard this story, is we think we need to be the Good Samaritan. That is a great way to think about this parable. And that's a wonderful message that we can get from it. So I'm not taking away that message. I think that message is valid and needs to still be learned. But there's another message. Apparently, anciently, like long time ago, when they first talked about the Good Samaritan, it had different meaning. In fact, they said that Christ was the Good Samaritan. And so I kind of wanted to just go through the parable that we all know so well and figure out, what does that mean for each of these symbols, and how do we learn so much more about the Savior through thinking about it this way. So I was trying to think of some of the different symbols. So the first symbol I think of is the road. And the road, I was listening to a different YouTube video, and Emily Bell Freeman was saying that she went to the Jericho Road, and she showed a picture of it, and it is just desolate, and it's hot, and it's sunny, and there's these caves in the rock, and so people can hide and they could see you for miles. They could see you coming, but you couldn't see them, right? Because they're hiding very well in these little, just alcoves all over the road. And people anciently knew that these roads were very, very dangerous. And so that's why this is such a good illustration. The road, I believe, is life, right? The road of life, the road of mortality, is something that is sometimes just really, really difficult, right? It's hot, it's icky, it's uncomfortable. It's something we have to do because we need to get from point A to point B. But there are people and things hiding along the path that we maybe can't see, that we don't really know are coming. And so this road, in my mind, is mortality. The inn, what apparently happened is, back then they knew that these roads were super, super dangerous. And so what they would do is they would put inns along the path. So there's not just one inn, and this isn't like a normal thing everywhere else. This is because this road was dangerous. They said, we're going to put an inn so that there's a safe place for people. And I believe that the inn is church, the saints, anywhere that is your safe place. And I believe it's probably organized religion, as well as just those spiritual moments you have with people outside of organized religion. But I do believe that God put these inns along the path for a reason. And so one thing we can think of as an inn is a church, an organized religion of whatever religion it is. And I like that we think of that way, because it's not that it's not that the church was everything, right? The church actually didn't save the traveler at all. The inn didn't save the traveler. The inn was just a place that the traveler was brought. And so the church is like that. Just being at the church, just being inside that inn, is not going to save your life. Somebody has to bring you there. And we'll talk about how the Savior can bring you to that. But it is a place that when someone is brought into, and when the Good Samaritan says to us, take care of him, that there should be no questions about, but who is he? Where's he from? Does he agree with me? Did he deserve this? Is he going to pay? None of that, right? That as a church, as an organized religion especially, that we need to be accepting and open and recognize that all people, all of God's children, are welcome. So that's one way we can think of the inn. But I think the other way we can think of the inn is that he just set these safe places for us to heal and renew, right? So church wasn't a place where everybody, just like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, just like sat around in this inn and talked about how great they were, right? This was a place that they brought hurt, dying travelers to heal and renew. So we bring them to church, but we also bring them into other situations in our lives that you can be the inn, right? So in this parable, we can think of ourselves sometimes as a traveler, but we can also think of ourselves as the inn. Some days I'm the inn and some days I'm the traveler. But I can be someone's safe place. Maybe they just need a spot to heal and renew without question, without any of that. And so we can be that safe place for people in their lives. And however that is that we show up to them, how can we do that to people and make it so that they recognize that, you are welcome here. And when Jesus brought you to me, then I can take over the things that I can do. So the thieves, I think it's a pretty obvious one. That's like Satan and temptation. And just sometimes it's things that we brought on ourselves, right? So it's sins that come from our own issues that we chose. And sometimes it's just life, right? It's just mortality, hard things that happen to us that we had no control over. But either way, there are thieves along our path. And there are times that maybe there is the adversary is sitting there watching us live our lives. And he is just waiting for that moment when he knows we're going to be weak and he can just take us and embarrass us and leave us for dead. So that's what happens. And the crazy thing about this is that we can't avoid the thieves, right? This road is hard. But there's nothing we can do about that, because I can't choose to just walk a life without thieves, right? Because that's not my agency. Those thieves can choose to do whatever they want, right? And so it's important to recognize that we are walking a very hard, dry, hot, mortal life, and there are thieves along this path, and there's nothing we can do about that. So what do we do? Well, we have people that also walk this path with us. And in our traditional thought process of the Good Samaritan, we think of the priest as being like a bad guy because he knew this person needed help and he didn't help him. And we think of the Levite as terrible because he looked and like gawked at this man and then left, right? What if we think a little differently? As the priest couldn't help. The priest didn't bring any supplies with him. He had no ointment. He had no bandages. He had nothing to put this man on. He looked at this man, and whether or not he wanted to help him, he could not save him. He didn't have the tools to save him, and neither did the Levite, right? So the people in our lives, the spiritual leaders in our lives, our priests, our bishops, everybody that we encounter, none of them have the power to save us. There is one person who can save us. And so us spending our time reaching out to our friends, reaching out to other people to try to bring that saving grace and to try to, fulfill that life need that we have, it will never work because they don't have the power. The only person that can save you is the Good Samaritan. And Christ is the Good Samaritan. So as he comes along the road, he's not walking this road by chance, right? The priest and the Levite, they're like walking it because they have to. The Good Samaritan, when he goes into the inn, he says, here's some money for a couple of days. When I come back, I'll pay the rest. That means he comes into this inn regularly. This isn't just like, oh, if I happen to be across. This is like, I'm going to come back. He knows the innkeeper very well. And he's like, I'm coming back. I'm here all the time. So when I come back, I'll pay the rest if I need to. So the Good Samaritan is out walking this road intentionally. He doesn't need to walk this road like everybody else. He's doing it on purpose. Christ is doing these things for us on purpose, even though he didn't need to do them, right? So, because it doesn't benefit him, I guess is what I'm saying. He needed to do that for us. But so he goes along this road all the time and he's carrying the right supplies with him. He has an animal with him to put people on. He's looking for people because he knows there are people left for dead, and he is walking that road every day, finding those people. And he does what no one else can do. The priest, the Levite, no one can do this part. Christ is the only person that can pick him up, bandage him in the moment, save his life. But then the interesting thing is that then he takes him to the inn. So he doesn't save his life completely there. right? He doesn't just like bandage him and heal him 100% and then the man just walks off, right? He saves his life, the most critical thing, the thing that no one else can do. Then he takes him to the inn and tells someone else to do the rest. Because then he can go out and do the rest of the healing on his own, right? He can go and do those things that no one else can. But we, if we are thinking of ourselves as the inn, we have the power to do so much. Once Christ has saved someone and they have used the atonement in their lives, we can do so much to help heal those wounds. Just like in one of the talks we heard that Christ could have moved the stone away. He could have unwrapped Lazarus's bands. He could have done all these things, but he didn't. He allowed other people to do the things that they could do, and he did the one thing that no one else could do. And so you notice that that's what the Good Samaritan does. He saves the life in the moment, but then he lets the other peers and mortals take care of the things that they can do, because that also brings love and joy and peace and all of those other things to those people who are doing the service. And he brings these people to the church, to their safe places, and says, take care of him. And how many times has Jesus sent someone to us and said, take care of him? But because that person came in a way that we didn't expect, that person didn't look or talk or whatever the way that we thought our peers did. This person wasn't our peer. Maybe this person was our mortal enemy, that we didn't follow his heed to take care of him. And what would have happened to the traveler if Jesus brings him to the inn and then the innkeeper's like, nah, we're good, right? So I just love that idea that Jesus is coming. And so if we think of ourselves as the traveler, because we all are, every single person is on a mortal journey and every person is dying spiritually along that journey, right? And so we can't pick ourselves up and get ourselves to the inn. There is no way. We are going to die right there if Jesus doesn't come and save us. And it is only through his atonement that we can. And you know the other cool part is he doesn't take the traveler to the inn and say, okay, here's $2 or here's 2 days worth of, wages. That should work for now. And then he should be able to pay the rest, right? He'll be able to work off the debt. No, the traveler paid nothing to the inn, nothing, because he couldn't. He focused on healing and renewing and being able to continue on his journey. The Good Samaritan, our Savior, is the one who paid the entire price. And I just love that. And then what would have happened? This was another interesting thing. What if I'm the traveler? And what would have happened if the Good Samaritan comes to me and says, you know what, I'm good. No, I'm fine. Like, I'm embarrassed because I'm naked. Because I did something, I should have seen that thief coming, and I didn't. And he just ravaged me, and now I'm sitting here naked and embarrassed because I brought something on myself. What would happen if he just said, no, thank you, I don't need you? What would happen if he was so damaged by things that he didn't control? He didn't see the thief coming. He didn't bring this on himself. But he was so sad or scared or thought that he could do it that he just said, thank you, but you can move on, find somebody else. He would have left himself to die. And how many times do we do that? Christ comes along and says, I am bringing you healing. I am bringing you the atonement in this moment. You pay nothing for it, and I will take you to the place that you need to be to get that healing. And we say, you know what? I wasn't really planning on going to that inn, so I don't think I'm going to go. Or he shows up in a way we don't expect. He shows up as a freaking Samaritan. He shows up in the weirdest way that we can imagine, because we're expecting a priest, we're expecting a Levite, we're expecting a Pharisee, we're expecting somebody who is like supposed to be doing these things, but he doesn't show up that way. He shows up in the most humble, simple situations in our lives. He shows up as a person we don't like from church, reaching out to us and saying, I want to help you, right? And we have to be humble enough to say, like, I'm going to take that help, because there's no way you're getting there anywhere else. No one else is taking you to the inn. The inn is there ready to help you, but Christ is the only person that can get you there. But you know what's crazy about him? He walks that road every day. He doesn't stop walking the road even if you deny him. So he doesn't say, oh, okay, you're good. Bye. He comes back tomorrow. And you say, no, thank you. And he comes back tomorrow. And he comes back every single day. And he keeps you just alive enough sometimes to know that he can come back tomorrow and ask again, because he will not stop offering. He walks that road all the time on purpose. It was not an accident he was there and he found you. He was looking for you. And when he finds you, he offers you his help. And if you deny it, he offers it again. Isn't that cool to know that he is looking for you in every situation and that he is never going to stop offering that help? And because he is the master healer and because this isn't a real situation, even when you die on the road, he can still bring you back to life, right? There is no stopping. This is not like life where you are too far gone. You can never be too far gone for the Good Samaritan to bring you back to life and take you to the inn. So I love that. And I just love the thought of like, how can I ask myself, first of all, to be the inn for these people? Because that's like the traditional idea of the Good Samaritan is how can we help our neighbors, right? And so not just how can I help people that I just happen upon, but how can I intentionally put things in place that support the people who need it, right? So that when they are in need of healing from the atonement, that I am there, ready and waiting to help them. So when Jesus brings someone to me, how can I be the inn? But even more powerful, what can I do when I'm that traveler? Am I going to be embarrassed that I made a choice that brought me there? Am I going to be embarrassed that I was so weak that the thieves overtook me? Or am I going to reach to the person who is reaching to me? I can call after that priest all I want. I can call after that Levi all I want. They do not have the power to save me, but I can reach to the Savior. And he is looking for me every day. And he will bring me up. And then he will take me somewhere that was not on my plan. And he will continue healing me through other people. And I've got to accept it. And I've got to love him for it. And how cool is that that's what he does for us? And he will do it for every single person. And because this isn't a real story, we know that this isn't like one guy on one road just saving a few travelers. He is saving an infinite number of travelers, and he has an infinite number of inns waiting for you. You just have to accept the atonement, and you have to let him heal you. And then when he takes you to the inn to continue your healing, you have to let that happen too. You can't just say, oh, I think I'm okay. I'm just going to keep on my journey. So I just love this thought of how can I be that? Because I will die without Jesus in my life, right? Like I am just sitting there dying spiritually, and I can't just wait. So I'm probably rambling because it's just so cool to think about all the ways that this really deepens your understanding of this story. That be someone's safe place, make an inn, and be ready and willing to accept people when Christ brings them to you and help them complete their atonement journey, right? Because we can't help them like take advantage of the atonement. That's not what I'm saying. Help them continue to heal after they've used the atonement in their lives. And number 2, recognize the sacrifice that Jesus made. He walks the road every day, even though he doesn't have to, and he looks for you. And he spends his entire life rescuing people. Nothing else. And he pays the entire price for you. So I hope that you can see some more depth in this story. And I'd love to hear more of your insight and discuss it with people. So let me know what you think.